The Outsider by Colin Wilson is about a man of intensity, a man who cannot live like everybody else. This is because he sees too deep and too much. But what does the outsider see? In one word, eternity. It would be helpful to view the outsider as one of the earlier figures of a larger cycle of spiritual birth. The outsider is a man who is undergoing a period of spiritual maturation. His soul has been stretched to the point where worldly answers cannot satisfy him anymore. They now leave him feeling empty. This isolates him from most people who have not experienced this terrible blessing. But his soul has not yet stretched to the point where he can fully intake and understand the presence of God. What the outsider needs most is a self-expression of the soul, the part of us that is made for and can only find rest in God. Man is a synthesis, both flesh and spirit. Different periods in history cater more so or less so to either side. The soul is torn apart in a painful condition as long as it prefers the eternal because of its truth, but does not discard the temporal because of its familiarity. This is one of the main characteristics of the outsider, this sense of unreality, an intuition not to fully commit to the seen world. In the words of Wilson, the outsider is a man who cannot live in the comfortable, insulated world of the bourgeois, accepting what he sees and touches as reality. He has seen and awakened to new questions, and has become depressingly aware of the world's inability to answer them properly. He sees the fragility of the world that most people trust with their lives. It is as though the outsider is intuitively aware of the necessity to be in the world, but not of it. But having been born without the infrastructure of the medieval church to recognize and nurture this sensitivity, is relegated to the margins of society, where he flails about, trying to reinvigorate a spiritual tradition, using only his own words within the span of his own comparatively short life. Therefore, one of the main fractal patterns regarding the outsider is this fracturing, where the teaching of the church splinters off into branches. The result is the atomization of institutional theology into the philosophies of individuals. The insider will sway wherever the wind will blow him. In a religious age, he is a Christian. In a secular age, he is an atheist. These masses make up the background of society that flexibly changes to fit the vacillations in attitude. The outsider is more rigid in his commitment to spiritual values, and so in a society like that of the medieval church, while he may be prominent due to his intensity and spiritual energy, he would more blend in with a more spirit-focused culture. Yet in an increasingly spiritually dead culture, the masses, the background people, change as the zeitgeist changes, and so the distinctiveness of the outsider increases as well. It isn't so much that many more outsiders are being born in one period as opposed to another. It is more that they are more identifiable compared to their decaying surroundings. The figure of the outsider emerges with the first signs of a broader spiritual decay. Sergei Bulgakov was a 20th century Russian Christian theologian, and he was also a proponent of universal reconciliation, which states that ultimately all people and all of creation will be reconciled to God. It does not have a view of hell as eternal fiery punishment, but instead as an agonizing yet necessary process of purification, where one is made aware of the nature of their sin and cleansed of their sin by the love of God. Bulgakov's description of hell is very relevant and important for our examination of the figure of the outsider. Judgment as separation expresses the relation between image and likeness, which can be in mutual harmony or in antinomic conjugacy. Image corresponds to the heavenly mansions in the Father's house, to the Edenic bliss of eternal life. Likeness, by contrast, corresponds to that excruciating division within the resurrected human being, where he does not yet actually possess what is his potentially, whereas his divine proto-image is in full possession of it. He contemplates this image before himself and in himself as the inner norm of his being, whereas by reason of his proper self-determination and God's judgment, he cannot encompass this being in himself. He cannot possess part of that which is given to him and loved by him in God. And this failure to possess, this active emptiness at the place of fullness, is experienced as perdition and death, or rather as a perishing and a dying, as eternal torment, as the fire of hell. This ontological suffering is described only in symbolic images borrowed from the habitual lexicon of apocalyptics. It is clear that these images should not be interpreted literally. Their foundational significance lies in their description of the torments of unrealized and unrealizable love, the deprivation of the bliss of love, the consciousness of the sin against love. The outsider is one step better off than the insider in being personally awakened to his relation to God. His despair lies in his inability to grow in this relation, whilst also being abundantly conscious of this failure. According to Bulgakov's explanation, he quite literally finds himself in a living hell, where his awareness of the good has outgrown his capacity or willingness to actualize it.
You know what we've done, gang? We've defied all the laws of nature. That's what we've done.